probably a festival every quarter of the year. There are workshops and events probably 2 or 3 times a month somewhere in Northern California. The largest belly dance festival used to be, I don't think that's true now, the largest belly dance festival in the world used to be here, right here at Richmond Auditorium in March of every year, called the Casa. And they literally had dancers from all over the world come to dance at that event. So there's actually many different styles of belly dance in almost every country. There's a Lebanese style, there's a Turkish style, there's a Moroccan style of belly dance. And I've even been in a lecture where a teacher traces the different, and I don't know if I would call them types of belly dance, but dance that have to do with the hip that look very similar, that are cousins to each other, going throughout the Nile, throughout the continent, tracing relatives of, let's say, belly dance. So it's not something that's just Egyptian. It really is in several countries throughout both Africa and other countries. And so we're going to talk about that for sure, but I also am adding to the pot today 2 other countries, Morocco and Algeria. And the reason I'm doing that is because we are talking about the pelvis, and they have also dances that I studied through this woman who's actually based here in Northern California. She's Algerian, born and raised. Her name is Amel Tassout. And she's an Algerian dancer, musician, choreographer, scholar who has danced and taught all over the world, actually. And particularly the information that I have about Algeria and Morocco is something I learned from her. She's based here just half an hour north of Petaluma. And teaches there as well as internationally. So I just want to give her that credit. So actually I want to start in Algeria. And the other piece is that Algeria, Tunisia, the Western Sahara, Morocco, Mauritania, all of that, Libya, all of that part of Northern Africa is known as the Maghreb region, and they share a certain heritage. There's definitely a lot of history amongst those countries, and they share elements of dance too. So I'm talking about the first 2. Someone called it out earlier what this was, right? Kabili. Mm-hmm. And as you see, this is Algerian Kabili. I'm sorry. Yes. And the dancers are singers oftentimes too, right? The troops are a mixture of dancers and singers. And oftentimes there's this thumping on the one that happens, which is something, belly dance is done on the first beat. You catch it really just behind the beat, not on the beat, which is how for Egyptian belly dancers, if you're looking at an American dancer or an Egyptian dancer, the Egyptian dancer is usually just behind the beat and not right on the beat. And they don't worry about catching every beat either. Although this style is heavy on that first, right? Then we're going to go and watch some shouting. Oh, well, this is the same one, I'm sorry. Medicine women and wise women, and historically have been seen that way. Like in our Western terms, we would consider them like priestesses, right? And so they're coming there to bless the event. And and to bring the feminine energy. And so it's not, for them, it's not like just a, it's not just a performance, that's true, but it's not accidental, right? That there's this feminine energy that they're bringing to it. So this is, we're moving to Morocco here, and I think this is like a women's wedding party. And we're seeing a Shishka give a performance. And notice he has the long tail at the end. And that's, so you have something about the waist. You're not seeing the waist. And again, I think oftentimes these women are considered, you know, a blessing to the event.
Which country is this?
This is Morocco. Right? So, again, you see the repeat of the hip sass, right? And for Moroccan, they put the tie, which in Egypt, we'll put it on our hip, they put it back in the back, right? Because they want to make sure you see that tail moving as they're moving.
Now, you said that the last time that there's a difference between ballet dancing from Morocco that's made for the tourists and ballet dancing that is done for their own events.
That can be true, and that can be true of every style, quite frankly. I mean, well, let's get into that. We're moving to Egypt now, right? So I started with my favorite all-time belly dancer. Her name is Fifi Abdou. Fifi is still with us, God bless her. She's probably in her 70s now. She's mainly acting, she's not dancing so much. But Fifi was unique when she came into the scene and became famous. Her fame was mainly around 70s going into the 80s. Because she was like a homegirl. She wasn't, sometimes belly dancers, most of the times they were women who kind of left their class. They were upper class women and like went against their class and became professional belly dancers, which is actually taboo in a way. So like, if you're a rich person in Egypt, you want a belly dancer at your wedding, but you wouldn't want your son to marry a belly dancer. Yeah. Right? Fifi was from the people, you know, she was from the hood, so to speak, and she wasn't ashamed to show, she didn't put on airs. And a unique thing about her is that she invented this tableau, this story of like this homegirl who, and what she's wearing is a galabia, a man's full dress, and she would put that on, as you see here, and put a hip scarf, and like create her own kind of like tongue-in-cheek storyline about dancing as a woman in a man's dress. And as opposed to the two-piece with a lot of skin, she danced that way too. But she made this popular and people still mimic it. And so this piece, what she's doing is called a melody tocsin. And what that means is a slow piece of music with usually a singular instrument like a saxophone or an accordion or just a singular instrument playing a solo. And a dancer dances like a duet with that solo. She interprets the music. And for Fifi, she does a lot of hip work. has, and you'll see some of this later, showing a lot of skin. Remember, these are primarily Muslim people, right? So historically, that's not true. And so she's really bringing the dance back to that, and we're also bringing it back to the hip. So she doesn't do a lot of upper body work. She does a little. She plays what they call in Egypt sagettes, and we call them castanets, or they're really not castanets. Castanets are made of wood, and these are made of metal. Zills or sagettes, which is bringing back an old flavor. And even though this is like actually at a 5-star hotel in Cairo, she's trying to bring some of that home feeling. You see her orchestra and her players of her tableau sitting behind her, which is kind of mimicking the dancing in community. She's trying to bring that feel back to the dance. So I'm showing you next what she's actually trying to mimic. So this is from a documentary about the Dom people of Gwazi. And Gwazi folks end up settling, they're nomadic, and they end up settling in southern Egypt because they were kicked out of northern Egypt by the then leader. And they're kind of what many people considered like the inventors of the dance. The women were not veiled. They danced before men and women. They, they were first to put this hip scarf on. And this is dancing in community. This is really. Very simple. She actually has 2 bindings. She has one just under her breast and then a bigger with the coins on her hip. It's believed that the coins were the way that women literally carried their wealth around. It's just, and today we still have coin belts. I can show you one later. And it's really a simple step, and she's dancing with a singer, which is something that still harkens back today. So a modern day famous belly dancer is Ronnie Camel. And you'll see like a modern day version kind of what she's doing. So there's more skin, but it hints to a galleria, right? It's a full dress. She's got the hip scarf on, hit the one. Another kind of distinction you'll see with like, it's not just purely true with Egyptian, but mainly Egyptian belly dancers interact with the audience. That's really important, that energy. You're not just there being an entertainer. She's Egyptian through and through. So I think what the point I'm making is like there's this through line around exiting the hip. You have some kind of cloth, even if it's literally just a plain piece of cloth that you're tying around your hip. There's an emphasis on hitting the one. There's a belly dance move that's called Hagla. That you kind of saw a version of with the Gwazi. That's really about that foot and that hip coming out. And as many people know, belly dance is really about not moving all of the body at once all the time. It's really about segmentation. So like, I'm not trying to move all of my body. I'm trying to have you pay attention to my hip. While the upper part of my body is still.
Woo!
So because I'm trying to have you pay attention to my hips, I tie something around my hips to make sure you don't miss the action. Right?
Yeah.
So Hagla, which came from that second piece, so you saw she was doing a lot of stuff and moving. Right? And letting the reverb hit her butt, right? So Hagla, I'm trying to move my hip and give that emphasis. I'm trying to have my upper body as still as possible. And then I may stop in the shimmy. And there's so many hip movements that people do, and some that like most of them are unnamed. When you, especially from the 70s through the 90s, when Egyptian belly dance artists started coming to the US, a lot of them didn't speak English. So it was like, learning from them was follow the bouncing butt, literally, right? And so you watch closely what they do with their bodies. And so you learn that, oh, she's doing a knee shame. The energy is coming from the knee. Her glute was coming from the butt, right? So you saw women, that's pelvis, and that's ab. That's the abs, right? So like isolating these parts of the body and breathing through it, not holding your breath. So and this is something, I don't want to say they did it naturally, but when you grow up in the culture, you see other people in the culture do it, right? If you're paying attention. And then you learn. I'm going to pause there. You want to do your portion?
I can, yeah.
And we can do more demonstration. And I guess the other thing I give people is I did bring, when I was in Egypt, I bought this hip belt. The material is called a suit, which means there's metal pounded into it. This is metal. But I wanted to say bring the coins out, right? Because you want to hear that jingle, right? And you know, again, this is like debated whether it's true or not, but it's believed that the reason there were coins is that's where the women literally held their wealth on their bodies. They stowed the coins into the cloth, right? And so if you needed to buy something, you take it off the cloth. Also, it meant like if it was on your body, it's hard for someone to steal it. If you left it at home, or if you're in a magnet, home may be anywhere, right? Home is moving. So, and there's actually a town that it comes from. It's called a suit, which is the name of the material itself.
As an American,
This is Egypt.
okay, as an American, how did you have this interest in going to Egypt?
How did I not?
How did you to Egypt to learn belly dancing?
I was fortunate enough to have some Egyptian teachers early on, and teachers who were very intentional about teaching the culture as well as the dance and music. And especially with Egyptian style belly dance, you really do need to do, in my opinion, you really do need to know the culture to do it justice. To know why it's an earthly dance, There are some belly dancers that dance on point, and there's some Egyptians who do it a little bit. But most Egyptian belly dance is flat-footed. It's very grounded. It's center of gravity. You know, it's because, you know, women were dancing with pots on their heads. And it's easier to do that flat-footed, right? And also why audience energy and interaction is important and why story is important. Like to dance to an Egyptian song and you don't understand the lyrics, it's kind of bad form because you're not relaying, the whole point is to relay what the song is about, right? To like have you and your audience get emotional about what that song is about. And so if you don't know, you can't relay that. So like to me all of that was like really interesting and intriguing and just wanted to know more. And you know, it's part of at least Northern California belly dance culture. It's one of the dreams of many belly dancers to go to Egypt. Whether you go there to dance there professionally or not, or just to go. There's like a half a dozen or more belly dance festivals in Cairo alone that you can go to throughout the year. And many belly dancers go to those festivals. To dance, to be taught by teachers who are there. You know, a very, very small percentage actually dance professionally in Egypt. But a fair number of dancers do make their way there.
When you said something about a teacher that you had, what kind of a teacher doing what where?
An Egyptian belly dance teacher dancing here. I mean, people may not realize there's actually a huge belly dance community here in Northern California. You can pop for a rock when you hit a belly dancer and you don't even know. Here in Northern California, there's probably a festival every quarter of the year. There are workshops and events probably 2 or 3 times a month somewhere in Northern California. The largest belly dance festival used to be, I don't think that's true now, the largest belly dance festival in the world used to be here, right here in Richmond Auditorium in March of every year called the Casa. And they literally had dancers from all over the world come to dance at that event. So there's like a huge belly dance community because there's also a long history here of dancing, belly dancing in Northern California, particularly in San Francisco, where there used to be a lot of Middle Eastern restaurants. Not so much anymore. And there's a fairly sizable Arab community here, Middle Eastern community here, some who own restaurants and a lot of musicians, a lot of people who play oud and drums and flutes, singers, and some of them participate in the belly dance community because people one of the biggest honors is to dance in front of a live band, which is not easy to do throughout the country, but actually we're very lucky here in Northern Cal that there's still several bands that people can dance to at various festivals. Because there's just an extra energy that you don't get to recorded music. Because like you know what's going to happen in recorded music, because it's going to be the same way every time. But you can't ask a band to play it like the song, right? In fact, that's an insult, right? Because you want to give them freedom to take off. So that means you have to be a skilled enough dancer to go with them. Yeah. Any other questions, or we can come back to this.
Questions?
So a question about the beats. You mentioned, sometimes you mentioned that you don't have to be in tempo with the beats. Is that on every type of belly dances or just that concept?
From my knowledge, Egyptian belly dancers particularly aren't necessarily right on the beat. They're just a little bit behind because there's this sensibility. The sensibility of the dance is where it is. We're not trying to be Right, so the drummer may be going, and I may just catch every other, because I'm too chill for that. Right, there's this kind of like feeling of like, even if the song is up, I'm still at ease. So I can be just a little bit behind me, just a little bit. Because it's not about keeping up, it's not about hurry, hurry, hurry. You know, it's about, no, this is how we're enjoying, we're entertaining each other. So it's not just offbeat either. It's hard to really explain it. But Egyptian audiences know, they feel it. They know when an American belly dancer and used to hit every, especially doing drum pieces, they're hitting every tick-tock, right? Egyptian belly dancer is enjoying it. And she's playing with the drummer, and she's playing with the audience. And so they come over. It's not that she's ignoring, but she understands what the reason for being there, right? It's not to like, let me show off my skill, right? Let me show off my technique and what I can do. I have enough skill and technique that I can rest in that and just enjoy it with you. So it's a sensibility. It's not so much a technical thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's a sensibility.
Thank you. Another question is, one of the dancers in the beginning, they had something falling, kind of a rubber.
Yeah, the way they tie the
Yes,
wrapper.
the kind of
Right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes, and so
That's the one
there's
thing.
another extra see this too sometimes. You have a tie up here, like right underneath the right here, and then you have another around the waist. So what I'm telling you is where to look. Right? I'm telling you where the action is. Right? Because there are times that I'm going to use this right here and this here. And so, you know, it's like, in some ways, it's the ultimate of not being so subconscious about body image. You notice a lot of these women are full figured.
Oh yeah.
You know, they have some, and doesn't matter. Right? It's like I'm here. And I think part of that is also, especially if we go back to the Algerian and Moroccan, remember historically these women were considered medicine women, and their body is considered medicine. The movement is considered medicine.
You got what over here?
There's water here on the other side.
You got one?
Step one.
It's more ecological.
Thank you.
Yeah. We can talk more. So what I'm telling you is where to look. Right? I'm telling you where the action is. Right? Because there are times that I'm going to use this right here and this here. And so, you know, it's like, in some ways, it's the ultimate of not being so subconscious about body image.